Salute to you all, the brave never fall. I'm Coach MJD Tiger, life coach, mentor, and I answer the call of purpose for myself to help others answer the call of purpose for themselves. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. Welcome to Visions. Never lie to yourself about the truth of who you truly are. That is something that can be easy to say, much harder to do in practice and in reality. The goal, of course, is to truly do just that. Never lie to yourself about who you truly are, whether that's good, bad, or ugly. That's how we grow and improve. If we have an honest assessment coming from ourselves first, we can change anything, and it could be something that we can do at our own pace. We don't have to scream to everyone in the world what our issues are. If we can identify those things for ourselves and start to work on them ourselves, we're in a good spot, we're in a good direction, and there are no limitations to what we can do when we're open and honest through ownership and accountability of who we are. The book recommendation I have for this podcast is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this is a book that I just recently have learned more about. I've heard about it, but to actually dive into this book and start to not only listen to it, but apply it, meaning there's a workbook that goes along with this. And we'll talk about more about books in general in this particular podcast, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about so much what I love about this book. But one of the things I do love about it is that it has a workbook, a companion piece that goes along with it that is actually more important than the book itself. The book itself gives you the blueprint, so to speak, but the workbook actually gets you to open your eyes about your rituals, your habits, how they serve you, how they don't serve you. It's been essential to my growth in the past few months, and I encourage you to check out this book by James Clear. It is unbelievable, and it is proven results for yourself. How are you feeling? How are you feeling mentally, in your mind? How are you feeling physically throughout your body? How are you feeling emotionally in your heart? How are you feeling spiritually in your soul? Every single day I ask myself this in the morning, throughout the day, and at night before I close my eyes for hopefully peaceful sleep. The more I do this, I guarantee myself that sleep, that peaceful sleep that I deserve by being in my mind, body, heart, and soul each and every day. So take a moment right now and ask yourself, how are you feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? How are you feeling? You are far stronger than you believe you are. You are. You have to trust yourself each and every day to not only feel this within yourself, but to know it. To know that you are far more capable of what you're producing, what you expect of yourself, and what you're capable of doing. You are. Visions, Episode 2, Be a Bookworm. This title is what it is, just right off the bat. What I love about this new series, Blueprints of Life, Visions as its main title, is that it offers us an opportunity to explore things about ourselves that we literally take for granted. Things that we have done since birth that we have been forced to do. And over time, we get away from them. It's like going through school. You go through preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, grad school. We are learning constantly. Most of that, all the way up until we're adults, it's mandatory. We're supposed to do it. We're forced to go to school to a certain age. Once you get to be 15, 16, a lot of places, a lot of states, a lot of places in this world, you don't have to go to school at all. But at some point, you do get a choice. You could say, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to continue my education. But the great thing about life is that it's that choice. Once you don't have to do something and it's not mandatory, we gain something. We gain the freedom to make that choice, but we also give up something, and that is the ability to make excuses about what we don't know and understand. And that is the part about life in particular that can be very hard for people, is that that choice offers up so many more problems, because we can say, hey, I don't want to be this particular person right now. This is what these people want me to be. This is what society wants me to be. This is what my church wants me to be. We can go on and on and on. The goal is to find out what you want for yourself and to ignore all the outside noise and only take from that positive things that actually benefit you with a decision that you know you're more comfortable with. But the question becomes, well, how do you know that? How do you know you're going in the right direction? How do you know that what you're doing is going to be something in the end game, something that you're not going to regret? You're not going to regret dropping out of school. You're not going to regret the guidance that you got from mentors. You're not going to regret all of the things that you did that look like failures, but you're running from them because you don't want to know what Phoenix came out of that fire of failures. In order to do that, a lot of times we've had to fail somewhere else to look back and be like, you know what, I shouldn't have made that decision. And that's the scary part, because whatever decision we make at any crossroads moment in our life, we have to accept the fact that we may look down the line back at this moment and say, I should not have done that. I should have kept this person in my life. I should have kept going down this road. I should have done this. I should have done that. But that's where forgiveness comes in. You know, we have to forgive ourselves for that. You say, how does all this tie into being a bookworm? I'm getting there. When I was young, my father died. I had a built-in excuse at age 14 to give up, to not want to learn anything, to use all these excuses that people would have honestly said, yes, we get it. That is a valid excuse. I remember being in college. I was a musician. We had a band concert. I was a jazz musician, and I ran a jazz combo, and I was instrumental in putting this is a community college. I was instrumental in, quote unquote, instrumental in putting in this first jazz combo group at this particular college. They had a jazz band, but they never had jazz quintets and quartets. And I was one of the ones who was very vocal about the school adding courses that dealt with jazz combos and quintets and quartets. And with my help, my professors and who I'm good friends with now, and good friends with me at the time, we were able to successfully get this put into the program. And to this day, this school has these jazz quartets and quintets, and I was able to help start that. And I remember our first concert as this community college, the first jazz quintet ever at this community college. And I was going to go on stage and we were going to unveil it. And, we wrote our own music. Me and my guys played on the weekends. That's why we wanted to do this. We played all the time anyway. And I remember saying, I want to wear a tie. I don't know how to tie a tie. I was 21 years old and I did not know how to tie a tie. I never had to do it. I always had clip-ons. My dad never taught me. My stepfather never told me how to do it. He went over it one time. And I said, you know what? I really want to freaking wear a tie to this concert tonight. I just had in my brain, I'm going to wear a tie tonight. How do I do it? This was back in 2000, the year 2000. And I remember this is back when we didn't have, you can just go to Google. You couldn't just go pull up on your phone and find endless videos and tutorials on how to do this stuff. If you want to learn how to do stuff like this, you had to go to the library and get a book. See how this is tying in? I went to the library, grabbed a book on how to tie your tie. And I remember going up to the counter and the lady looked at me and she says, this is interesting. I had a couple other books in there. I think it was a biography. I was big into biographies back then. This is all tying into books. We're going to get all into this. How books changed my life. And she said, this is very interesting. I said, I have a concert tonight and I really want to learn how to tie my tie. Now, I've had ties before, but people would tie them for me and I would just tighten them up. I wanted to learn from scratch. And she's like, oh, okay. And I remember her just looking at me and I started feeling very emotional about it. I felt ashamed. I felt sad. It brought back bad memories. It made me feel like I was a wreck. I wanted my father to teach me how to do this damn tie this night. And I knew it was impossible. So now it became no excuses. You're going to learn. And I went home. I took the book home and with tears in my eyes, because it was somehow connecting me to my father. I did it a few times, messed up, was in the bathroom. I was getting frustrated. And I said, you know what? You're going to wear this damn tie tonight. You've been through all this today. You should be practicing. You should be doing all this. And you've been worrying about this tie. I had bought a tie. I tied it. And then I did it again. I kept doing it better and better. And me being the person I am, when I learn how to do something, I want to be the best at it for myself. Which is why, like with the Rubik's Cube, I was like adamant with a Rubik's Cube. I want to learn how to do it. That was on my bucket list. Want to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube before I die. And now I can do it. It's the same thing with that tie. I just was adamant. I need to learn how to do this, obviously. If I ever have a son, I want to be able to teach him how to tie a tie. That was like my thing. I don't want him to go through this like I'm doing this. And I tied it. And believe it or not, that was a moment where I realized no excuses. There's always a way to figure out what you don't know and apply it in real time. It wasn't something that I said, okay, well, I'll do it the next concert. No, I was adamant that day, hours before this concert, I want to learn how to do something I've never done before. And I would teach my damn self how to do it if need be. And I did. Now, could I have gone to people? Could I have gone to my professor and said, could you help me with this? Yeah, I could have. But I wanted myself. Something deep down inside said, no, you figure it out. Stop asking for help. This is your responsibility. You want to wear that damn tie you bought? Figure out how to freaking tie it. And I did. And it opened up doors for me in confidence-wise that I can't explain. But it also solidified my love for books and what they can do for you as far as life-changing moments like that. Because if you can find the right book at the right time, it can change your life. And I know that sounds heavy and hokey and corny, but I'm going to say it again. If you can find the right book at the right time, it will change your life. Because a lot of times those books are just giving us reassurance about who we are, or they're opening up with enlightenment about what we can be if we keep moving forward. If we don't get too down on ourselves, if we can realize there's people out there who understand, they get it. We're not void of having all these emotions that we're just sitting in here saying, well, nobody understands me. There's plenty of people out there who understand you. Like David Goggins says, you can stand with your eyes closed and throw a rock into open space with a bunch of random people walking around, and it's going to hit somebody who understands exactly what you're going through. 100%. We are never alone with this. It's just the opportunities and the moments that we have where we feel alone because we feel like the people in our immediate vicinity don't understand us. I have no problem saying that I'm a nerd, especially when it comes to books. I buy more books than I read. And the reason why I do that is because I know I'll eventually get around to them. But I'm also a speed reader. So when I pick up a book, sometimes there have been people that walked up to me and said, "Hey, why are you still reading that book?" I'm like, "I've read it 4 times. Oh, it looks like you just no, like Extreme Ownership. I have that book. Jocko Willink. Love that book. It'll be on the book list in the future. I just kind of gave away a recommendation, but I'll put it on there anyway. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I've read that book like 5 times, and I've had these moments where if you read a book once, you don't retain all the information. It's just like any information that you get. The more repetition you get within any information, you're going to learn it better. Corey Wayne, he has a book that I love. It's called 3% Man. And he recommends you read that 10 to 15 times. And a lot of people who follow him say that's a bit much. But there's a trick to what he's saying. He's not saying you should read the book 10 to 15 times. He's saying you should get the information from the book 10 to 15 times to make sure that it's all sticking in there. How do you do that? Audiobooks. I have been reading books by being a speed reader. I can go through a book and I get it, but that's the reason why I love speed reading, because I can go through it once and kind of get the gist. The second time, I kind of know what to expect, so I'll pinpoint certain places and I'll make notes and I'll make my own index, because if it's a good book, I'm going to revisit it. I make my own index, I put post-its in there, and I'm making notes, and I can revisit this book. So by the time I read it for the 5th time, I can I can fly through it because I'm skipping the filler and I'm getting right to the meat and potatoes of what the book is. And that's the whole point. But the great thing about audiobooks is you can finish a thick, big book in 7 hours. Steve Jobs' book is that'd be another one that I'm recommending, but I'll have to put this one in the recommendation one. You're hearing all the recommendations in this one, but that's okay. There's some other gems in that I'm definitely going to share. But what's great about something like audiobooks is that you can read a big, thick book like the Steve Jobs book in 7 hours. Now, for me, if I'm working 10 hours, that's more than enough time to finish one book every single day. And that is on the bigger end. I have gotten to the point now I'm finishing 2 books a day. And you might say, well, you're not really reading them. No, you are reading those books. What's the difference? In fact, for me, I'm audio based. So I like to listen. I'm a podcaster. What I'm doing is kind of how I like to receive information. I make these podcasts in a way where I know I would identify with them if I was listening to them. I retain information not by reading the words, but by also, I need to see the words in my mind. And I can get both of those at the same time when I'm doing audio. Once you get in a rhythm of reading books and you know what books to read, it opens up a whole new avenue of going down a rabbit hole of books. One book will lead to another. This book will lead to this. This author will lead to that. And that's the fun of it. You start exploring in books. It opens up things where you're like, I never thought about that. And some of these, what's great about being a bookworm is that you don't have to agree with all the information. You take what's the best parts of it and incorporate it. It's not like a movie where you sit down, you turn around, I hope I like this movie. There may be 3 or 4 good moments in the movie, and you may say, well, overall, I could care less if I ever see that movie again. It was okay. It was fun and entertaining for the moment. For books, it's completely different because you're committing a whole different time scale to it. It's not 2 hours. It's not a binge watching show. It's something you have to say, I'm intentionally going to sit down and read this book, or I'm going to listen to this book, which is why I recommend, if you have a problem reading books, audiobooks are the way to go. It's an investment. Something like Audible, I have gone back and forth. Should I keep Audible? Should I not? It's worth it. It is definitely worth it. There's nothing greater to me than to be out working or just having some free time and listening to a few chapters in a book while I'm cleaning, while I got some free time, or I'll go for a run. Just listen to some chapters in a book. And whatever the activity is that you're doing when you listen to the book, you kind of get lost in it, and it tends to make your activity more enjoyable. It tends to make your activity more productive than just being in your head or listening to like a meditation or something like that. What I like about books is that you also get to pick the ones that you like best. Who says that you only have to listen to self-help books? Or, I listen to a whole range of books. I used to be big on sci-fi. I remember when I was younger, I have my book collection is all over the place. I love astronomy and astrology and stuff like so. I have books on that. I'm a big space nut, so I like history and stuff. I have I like engineering. I like art, um, archaeology. I like architecture, things like that. I have a book on almost everything. I just love books, and if you can give me pictures and stuff like that, I'm a child when it comes to that. Give me a book with pictures, and I'm eating it up. Love it. I mean, I even have a book that I got at the Goodwill of how the Starship Enterprise D was made and the engineering behind it. And I read it. I've read it like 5 times. I'm just such a freaking nerd. I just bought a book the other day uh, about talking about how to communicate effectively through sales and marketing, and how that can. That's another book. I won't even tell you the title because it's in the recommendations. I recommend that one too. But the point is, I get books that serve me in a positive way that I'm going to get something out of, and I'm going to revisit. If I don't think I'm going to revisit it, I don't really want to read it. Now, that doesn't say that being a bookworm is all about exploring and opening up new doors. There are people who just love romance novels. There are people who love their Bibles and their spiritual texts. There's nothing wrong with that. There's people who like books that cannot be longer than 200 pages. There's people who only read books that are 700 pages. What's great about the world we live in today is that you are one recommendation away from a book that could change your life. And those are facts. What's great about any book is that you never know when you're going to get to that one page, and it's going to hit you so hard, and you'll realize you'll never forget that page. One of my favorite books of all time is The Postman. And I recommend that book. It's a science fiction book. Kevin Costner played, he made, directed, and starred in the film version, which is not nearly as good as the book. But I remember that book in particular. I read it in school. And my love for books, as far as being able to bridge the gap of entertainment to pure self-help, like tying the tie. What I like about books is that even in tales that aren't real, you find yourself being emotionally invested in them, and it translates to the real world. It translates into reality, because with books, you're forced to use your imagination. If you ever read a book where it's vague and it says, it tells you where the scenery is, but it doesn't give you all the details, your brain has to fill in the blanks. Miyamoto Musashi's book, the guy who wrote the book, Musashi, is a book about Musashi's life. There's a particular sequence at the end of the book, and I won't spoil it, where Musashi has to meet up against his younger rival. Musashi is a Ronin. He's a lone samurai who is like completely out of his mind on his purpose. Great book based on a true story. And he meets this guy where they call on it's a river. They're on a river, and the way that the author describes the scenery, he describes it just enough where you have to fill in the blanks, and your mind is forced to be creative at that point. It's forced to pull from people, places, and things that you've seen before, but also adding a fantasy element to it, which means books force you to think. Books force you to be creative. Books force you to feel. They force you to dive in and either accept what you're reading and be all in with it, or get completely bored with it and throw the book to the side and say, that's not for me. Where's the next one? But what's great about it is that if you do get that emotionally invested into the book and you're creating all these things yourself, you realize a lot about yourself. You realize you can be distracted and lost in people, places, and things that aren't so familiar to you, because a lot of these books are, we're meeting people we'll never meet. We're learning about places we'll never see. We're doing things we'll never do. Even with biographies, you get to have a passport into someone's life and their world and grow up with them and experience what they experience. And it humbles you. It brings you back to a place of childhood where you're experiencing things with brand new owl eyes. You're just wide-eyed and just ready to soak it all up. That's a bookworm. I'm raising my hand right now. Complete freaking nerd when it comes to that. I have reinvested my love into books because of all the knowledge I've gotten in the past few months from them. And the benefit from them is that there's so many books, you can never read all of them in one lifetime. And that's the joy of it, is finding that next best gem and not just saying, I read another book. It's not about just reading another book. It's about, what are you going to learn from that book and how does it affect you? And what are you going to do to transport that knowledge to someone else? And to be a bookworm just simply means you're taking your life seriously enough where you are willing to invest every single bit of information out there. You're investing it into yourself. You're willing to say to yourself, there's no shortage of information out there, so I might as well go ahead and get as much of it as possible. And I don't like to say that you should always look for things that are free, but we live in a world where YouTube exists. A lot of these audiobooks I'm not paying for. You can go on YouTube and download them and listen to them. And if I really love them, I buy them. There's no excuses. There's no excuse to not be better in ourselves. Now we're moving from excuses into ownership. It's not just about the books. It's about who we are. And in particular, not about just who we are, but it's about what we're doing with ourselves. It goes back to that quote. If we're lying about who we are, we know it when we're exposed to things that tell us the truth about ourselves, whether we like it or not. And a lot of things that happen in our lives, we get afraid. We're afraid of facing the reality of ourselves. And yes, we can experience that in books. I mean, it sucks to read a biography about somebody who has gone from nothing and they have made it, and you haven't made it yet. That sucks. But that's someone who's choosing to look at that stuff as a negative instead of looking at it and saying, well, if this person did it, why the hell can't I? You read the Steve Jobs book. That book is insane. How did this guy, this kid who was adopted, who was disgruntled and did his own thing, went by the beat of his own drum, ended up being the world, he changed the world. It can be hard to read that. You'll say, well, I'll never be like that. Why tell yourself that? The whole point is that you're reading that, but someone at some point is going to be reading your story. Unfortunately, you may be reading it in an obituary, or it could be in a book. I choose a book, which is why I'm writing the Brave Never Fall book. It's not just about making a book, writing a book. It's about leaving something behind that my name is attached to, that's not just attached to an obituary. It's about leaving something behind where you are going to make an impact in this world. And we're reminded every single day, through every single thing that we look at, through social media, through our friends and our families, we live through our experiences. We learn through our experiences, and we have control over what those are. There are no excuses. We can't say any longer in this world, I don't know something. There's nothing worse than someone asks you a question and they're holding onto their phone. Yeah, you could tell them, but you can also tell that this person doesn't really want to commit to what they really want to know. We can go onto the Google machine and find whatever bit of information we want, whatever book we want, whatever movie we want, whatever piece of music we want. There's something out there for everyone. The excuses go out the window. But let's be honest. Effort has to be made. A blueprint has to be put in practice. Expectations need to be managed. Limitations need to be lifted. Goals need to be made through discipline. Truth needs to be told in mirrors. Souls need to be cleansed with reality. Power has to be grown through purpose. And we can't have any of that if we're unsure of ourselves, if we're insecure about who we are, about what we can do. And what I love about books is that we can find somebody who's exactly like us and read their life story. At best. If that's all you have left is to say, I just need somebody to give me hope that I can get to the next day. Who has done this? Who has lived their lives like me? That's why biographies are so important. And once you do that, then it opens up resources. You can say, oh, this person read this person did this, and now you can do the things that these people did. Now, we're not trying to, again, we talked about this in the last podcast. You don't mimic people to a T. What you're doing is you're taking what they did and you're saying, I'm going to add those attributes and add those skills to my life, but I'm going to put my own spin on it, my own individual, unique spin. Once you do that, the doors start opening. You start saying, okay, well, look at this resource. Look at that resource. Which is why books are so important. Because they open up so many different avenues. I have learned through reading so many books, and especially biographies. Again, I bring up that Steve Jobs book, but I can also bring up David Goggins' book. Again, like Jocko Willink's book, where he's applying real war stories and how they relate to boardrooms and businesses and families and relationships, and how those dynamics aren't as dissimilar as we may believe. These things teach you so many things, but they are going to also say, hey, listen, were you aware of this? Were you aware of that? That is the great thing about them, is that you're gonna be exposed to things you never thought. There's no way you could have ever thought you'd be exposed to. And you can only get that by interacting with people you could never interact with. Just think about this. Someone like Jocko Willink, David Goggins, they're writing about things in a way where it feels like you're sitting in a room with them. That's invaluable. You are learning so much. But we take these things for granted. I know I did for a while, which is why I'm so happy that I'm able to understand and appreciate the importance of being able to say, I have resources that legitimately make my life easier, happier, and more peaceful than it ever would be if I didn't. Because I'm learning through experience that I'm not alone, that I can achieve more because this person did the same thing that I did and they did it with less. You get to learn skills. You get to go to places that you've never been to before. Just think about, there are people who go to vacation spots and never knew that they existed until they read a book. There are people that realized they were passionate about something but never acted on it because they read it in a book. There are people who learn how to be better partners in relationships because they read them in a book. Just like the book I recommended in this one, Atomic Habits. I have learned through that book, and I just discovered this book not too long ago. I learned in that book that my habits, a lot of my habits, which I've changed, quite a few of them I've adapted, they sucked. But you don't know that until you read a page and you're like, oh, that's me. That's not good. I need to change that part of me. Quickly. I need to evolve past that. I didn't realize that was that bad. You can only get that by opening up and be willing to challenge yourself by going into the minds of others. These people aren't writing these books for no reason. They're doing them to help you. Even the romance novels. If you can escape into a romance novel, I don't read them, but there are people who do. And it brings them joy and peace because they get to escape from something. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly acceptable because they're going to learn through that book emotionally how they respond to things. We are learning every time. Every time we read a page in anything or listen to a page, we are learning. And that is what life is about. It's about learning, evolving. We've been doing it ever since we were babies. You go to school, you get your books the first day of school. You turn them in, get a little summer break. A lot of the teachers would give you a book list that you should read. I know me, back when I was young, we had the bookmobile. I spent all my time at the bookmobile learning about dinosaurs and robots and aliens and H.G. Wells and Orson Welles and just to name a few. Miles Davis, who knows? Abraham Lincoln. I learned anything and everything that I could because it was all there. And why not? No excuses. No excuses. It's about expanding yourself as a person, as an individual, to go beyond yourself. That is the whole point of The Brave Never Fall. And if we have resources like books, yes, be a bookworm. Learn, advance, accept, evolve, ascend, augment who you are. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. We will rise and maintain balance.